As more and more Southeast Asian countries relax travel restrictions, expats that once used to live in the region are finally looking to return. Let's have a look at some of the most visited places in the region and what the entry requirements are at this moment in time. Starting out with Bali, Indonesia, the island was closed for a very long time, and the island really needed the time to recover from the immense plastic pollution. And simply because the island is overpopulated. So restructuring, rethinking did happen during this time. How do we look in terms of entry requirements? Here's the thing. If you're fully vaccinated, you can enter Bali, Indonesia, provided you have a negative PCR test, a travel insurance. Fully vaccinated is also a requirement, plus you need to spend 3 days in a quarantine hotel and also test negative before you can move on and really enjoy your time on the island. This has been a problem because so many people don't want to come to Bali, Indonesia under these conditions, and they decided it's a lot better for them to simply spend the time, in a different place like Thailand, where no quarantine upon arrival is required. Now that the Indonesian government is aware of it, what they want to do is remove the quarantine upon arrival altogether so they can attract the same amount of tourists that visited the island pre-pandemic. When it will happen is yet to be determined. How do we look in the Philippines? The Philippines is open to fully vaccinated travelers. Again, you need to be fully vaccinated. If you're unvaccinated, no entry. There was a discussion happening for, letting unvaccinated people into Cebu, but this kind of died because what they were actually talking about was just foreigners and Filipinos that are already in the Philippines and that they were allowed to travel to Cebu, unvaccinated. That is true, but if you are flying in from abroad, then this is unfortunately no option for you at this moment in time. What can you do if you want to live in the Philippines for the long term? And what options do you have for visas? Here's the thing. The visa upon arrival is still available, and that visa can be extended, every 60, every 90 days, totaling up to 36 months, and that would really allow you to remain in the Philippines for 3 years. If you're the type of person that says, well, this is not good enough for me, I need more security, I need something like a residence permit, then there's obviously some options for you as well. Option number one is through starting a company. You incorporate a company in the Philippines, you sponsor yourself, and through the sponsorship you get a work permit. Once you have the work permit, after a certain period of time, you may qualify for residency. This is a great way for somebody that's under 50 that runs a business and wants to live in the Philippines permanently. How do we look in case you're older? What options do you have? If you're 50 plus and you're ready to retire in the tropical paradise, then what you can do is simply deposit $10,000 into a local bank account, but you also need to prove income of $800 in order to obtain residency in the Philippines. For people that don't have any income at all, is that they can deposit $20,000 or more into a local bank account and still secure residency this way. What is happening in Cambodia? The good news is that the country is open to vaccinated and unvaccinated travelers. This hasn't really changed since Omicron. So Cambodia has been fairly consistent and definitely more consistent than the neighboring countries. But there is a problem. In order for you to get into Cambodia, you need to apply for a visa prior to departure. And what the country decided to do, and in fact implemented last week, was to no longer allow mid-term visa extensions for tourists. That means that the 6-month and 12-month visa extensions are no longer available. This is terrible news for all the people that were looking forward to live in Cambodia using this, really affordable, because it was only $300 a year. So for the 12-month visa, you paid $300, and it could have been renewed indefinitely. The government decided to change this. What options do you have now? The thing is that you can really only stay in Cambodia for the long term. And if you want to feel secure, then what you can do is start a business And again, you sponsor yourself, you get the work permit and then the residency. So by sponsoring yourself and obtaining a work permit, you can later on also get residency. Obviously, there's a process involved here. It does take money. It does take legal assistance. It does take, accounting, a registered office. But it would be a great way for, a person who wants to live in Cambodia and that want to have more security. So if you want to have security, if you want to have certainty, because you just don't know what the country will do in terms of tourist visas and their extensions, then this is an option that you may want to consider. Of course, you can always work for a local company and obtain a work permit this way. Malaysia just reinstated the vaccinated travel lanes with Thailand, Brunei, and Singapore. This is good news because Malaysia has been a country that hasn't really done much over the past 2 years. They've made some drastic changes to the Malaysia My Second Home program and consequently upsetted a ton of people that were or are still on this visa. The thing is that the country hasn't really decided if and when the borders will reopen to international tourists. So for people arriving outside of Southeast Asia, meaning Australians, Europeans, North Americans, Latinos, Africans, there's no set time frame when the country will reopen up to those people. And this doesn't really create a lot of certainty because they have been talking about reopening, as early as January 1st, 2022. But since that never happened, a lot of people feel more insecure than ever to return to Malaysia. And so what they do instead is have a look at the neighboring countries and hopefully find more security, more stability there. In case you do want to live in Malaysia for the long term, and in case you are an entrepreneur, a business person, then what I can recommend to you is the Malaysia Tech Entrepreneur Program, which is available to new entrepreneurs and established entrepreneurs looking to incorporate a company in Malaysia, run their business from within Malaysia, and live in Malaysia on a permanent basis. There are obvious requirements that you need to meet. You need to have a certain amount of savings. It needs to be a technology-based company. You need to, sign up for a co-working space to really show the country, show the government that you have the intention to build this business because they want you to pay taxes. Nothing is for free. That is one option. In case you are already a bit older, let's say you're 50 plus, you're ready to retire, you have already tasted Malaysia, pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, doesn't really matter, and you want to have a second home, then what I can recommend to you is the Sarawak Malaysia My Second Home program, which requires an income of $2,500 or more per month, savings of roughly 150,000 ringgit, which translates to $35,000-$40,000. That's if you're a single applicant. If you apply as a couple, then obviously you need more savings, and that amount would be 300,000 ringgit. Now it's either or. You either prove the income or you prove the savings and then make a fixed deposit in a local bank account. The Maldives has been among the more consistent countries in the region, meaning they have allowed vaccinated and unvaccinated travelers to visit even during the pandemic, even during Delta. It's a location, it's a paradise of tropical islands that I can highly recommend. I've been there on several occasions. I really love the Maldives and I love its consistency. And yeah, like I said, if you're unvaccinated, you can go there, no test, no quarantine upon arrival needed. Plus, right now you get very good deals because a lot of hotels remain fairly empty. The last country I wanted to discuss with you in today's video is Vietnam. They plan to open up as early as June 2022, but now decided that they don't have to hold back any longer and that it is time to reopen the borders. The country is opening up to fully vaccinated travelers on March 15. The thing is that you must have received a shot within 6 months of arrival. It must have been older than 14 days, but within 6 months. No unvaccinated travelers will be allowed to enter the country. One of the things that has changed in Vietnam, as it has changed in so many neighboring countries, is the automatic visa extension is no longer available. Plus, you will no longer be allowed to extend your tourist visa while you're in the country. Now you might think this is terrible news because I lived in Vietnam for such a long time and I did it by simply extending my tourist visa using a local agency. That is a problem. This option no longer exists. But again, what you can do is something that I've recommended throughout this video, which is to open up a company, get a work permit, and then obtain residency. The Southeast Asian governments, what they want right now is they want investment. They don't want to have a bunch of people floating around, not spending any money on the visa system, on the government. What they want right now is people willing to pay thousands of dollars to obtain a long-term visa and pay taxes. It's got to be said that they want all these things right now. I'm not saying that the situation cannot change, but I think what the governments are trying to do is implement a new system, and they're in the process of testing the system and optimizing it for the near future. Which of the discussed countries do you want to visit this spring? Leave a comment below and let us know. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm uploading new videos on digital nomad locations, travel updates, visas, crypto advice, and business advice several times a week right now. I highly recommend that you grab a free copy of my ebook Nomad Elite, the Insider's Guide to Retaining a Life of Freedom. All you need to do is click on the link below the video. And if you got some more time left, check out these videos. Thank you for watching.